In a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, tensions between the United States and China have reached new heights, igniting a series of contentious policies that threaten to reshape international student exchanges and trade relations. Recent announcements from the Trump administration signal an aggressive shift, particularly targeting Chinese students and implementing significant trade tariffs. As these developments unfold, the implications could reverberate far beyond national borders, affecting educational institutions, economies, and bilateral relations. On May 29, 2025, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio announced that the administration would aggressively revoke student visas for Chinese nationals, a move that could drastically alter the educational landscape in the United States. According to recent figures, approximately 277,000 Chinese students enrolled in U.S. colleges last year, making them the second largest group of international students, trailing only behind Indian students. The potential for such visa revocations raises concerns about the future attractiveness of U.S. institutions for Chinese students, which many analysts warn could have a chilling effect on enrollment. The chilling effect on Chinese students choosing the United States as their preferred place to go for study will be enormous, remarked Rosie Levine, executive director of the U.S. China Education Trust. The ramifications are expected to extend beyond just enrollment numbers. U.S. universities, which heavily depend on foreign tuition to subsidize education costs for domestic students, face significant financial strain. This could lead to cuts in programs, layoffs, and ultimately a decline in the quality of education offered. Critics argue that these policies not only harm U.S. educational institutions but also represent a broader erosion of American soft power. Stephen Orlins, president of the National Committee on U.S. China Relations, emphasized that revoking visas could hinder U.S. innovation, particularly in the tech sector, where many Chinese students have historically made substantial contributions. Revoking their visas will cut off the pipeline and create long-term damage to the United States, he warned, highlighting the potential loss of talent that could benefit the U.S. economy. The visa announcement coincided with a separate but equally significant development in U.S.-China relations, a U.S. federal court ruling that blocked sweeping trade tariffs imposed by President Trump. The Court of International Trade determined that the president lacked unilateral authority under existing emergency laws to impose such broad tariffs, undermining a key pillar of his economic policy. The ruling drew attention to the constitutional separation of powers, reinforcing Congress's exclusive rights to regulate international commerce. The White House has expressed its intent to appeal the decision, arguing that the tariffs were essential to addressing national security concerns and protecting American industries. However, the ruling has already led to fluctuations in global markets, with investors reacting positively to the potential for reduced trade tensions. As these developments unfold, the future of U.S.-China relations hangs in the balance. The administration's hardline stance against Chinese students and the recent court ruling on tariffs represent two sides of a complex relationship characterized by suspicion and competition. While the Trump administration argues that such policies protect national interests, experts caution that they may ultimately lead to unintended consequences, including a diminished global standing for the United States. Looking ahead, the responses from both the U.S. government and educational institutions will be crucial in determining the trajectory of these policies. The appeal process regarding the trade tariffs may extend to the Supreme Court, while universities are grappling with how to adapt to the potential fallout from the visa revocations. As the situation develops, the balance between strategic national security interests and the economic realities of globalization will continue to challenge leaders on both sides of the Pacific. The stakes are high and the outcomes will likely shape the future of international relations and education for years to come. The ongoing saga of President Donald Trump's tariffs continues to shape the international trade landscape, reflecting his administration's aggressive stance on trade and its ripple effects across global markets. Since his return to the presidency, Trump has utilized tariffs as a cornerstone of his economic policy, both to address trade imbalances and to exert pressure on foreign governments. However, recent developments have thrown a wrench into his plans, as a federal court ruled that many of these tariffs were enacted unlawfully. On May 29, 2025, the U.S. Court of International Trade determined that Trump overstepped his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act (IEPA) when imposing a series of sweeping tariffs on nearly all U.S. trading partners. This ruling specifically targeted the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, which had included substantial levies on goods from China, Canada, and Mexico, among others. The court concluded that the president could not invoke emergency powers to justify such extensive tariffs, a decision that could have long-lasting implications for U.S. trade policy. In response to the ruling, the Trump administration swiftly sought to appeal the decision, emphasizing the need to maintain its tariff regime amidst ongoing trade negotiations. This ruling represents a setback for the administration's tariff plans and increases uncertainty, but it might not change the final outcome for most major U.S. trading partners, noted Alec Phillips, chief U.S. political economist at Goldman Sachs. Indeed, despite the court's decision, analysts predict that the administration may explore alternative avenues to continue imposing tariffs, including relying on national security provisions. The impact of these tariffs has been felt across various sectors. Notably, the technology industry remains on edge as Trump has threatened Apple and other companies with hefty tariffs unless they shift production to the U.S. if they're going to sell it in America. "I want it to be built in the United States," Trump stated, indicating a clear expectation that companies should absorb the costs of tariffs without passing them on to consumers. This sentiment echoes the broader challenges faced by retailers and manufacturers, who have begun to report increased costs and altered business strategies in light of the tariff landscape. The implications extend beyond corporate boardrooms. Consumers are likely to feel the brunt of these tariffs as well. A recent analysis revealed that many everyday products, from electronics to clothing, could see price increases as businesses adjust to the new cost structures. For instance, Walmart has already indicated that it may need to raise prices due to the tariffs, prompting criticism from the president, who urged the retailer to eat the tariffs instead. The complexity of this situation is further compounded by the fact that tariffs are effectively taxes imposed on imported goods, which can lead to higher costs for American families. As the trade war intensifies, negotiations with key partners, particularly the European Union, have become increasingly urgent. After Trump announced a potential 50% tariff on EU imports, he quickly backtracked following discussions with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who emphasized the need for swift and decisive negotiations. This back and forth exemplifies the unpredictable nature of Trump's tariff strategy, which has led to the emergence of terms like taco or Trump always chickens out, highlighting the volatility in markets that respond to his shifting policies. Looking ahead, the future of Trump's tariff policies remains uncertain. The recent court ruling may serve as a catalyst for change, prompting a re-evaluation of how tariffs are employed and potentially leading to a more structured approach to trade negotiations. As the administration grapples with its legal setbacks, businesses and consumers alike will be watching closely to see how the landscape evolves in the coming months. The complexities of international trade, coupled with domestic economic pressures, mean that the ramifications of these tariffs will continue to unfold, shaping not just U.S. economic policy but also the global trade environment. As tensions between the United States and China escalate, the U.S. is significantly increasing its military presence in Australia, marking a strategic pivot in the Asia-Pacific region. The move comes amid growing concerns regarding China's military ambitions, particularly under President Xi Jinping, who has reportedly ordered his forces to prepare for a potential invasion of Taiwan by 2027. This heightened military activity is seen as a vital step by the U.S. to deter Chinese aggression and reassure its allies in the region. The U.S. military's footprint in Australia has expanded dramatically since 2012, when only about 200 Marines were stationed in the country. Today, that number has increased to approximately 2,500 troops annually, the largest deployment since the end of World War II. This surge is particularly focused in the Northern Territory, where U.S. Marines are actively training alongside Australian and Japanese forces in various military exercises. A recent drill showcased this collaboration with over 500 U.S. Marines and more than 2,000 Allied troops simulating combat scenarios against Australian forces acting as adversaries. Major Nicholas Faust of the U.S. Marine Rotational Force Darwin emphasized the importance of familiarity and readiness, stating, "Knowing how one another works is of the utmost importance, and being ready to respond is something critical." Military analysts have noted that while a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is not a foregone conclusion, the modernization of the Chinese military, encompassing advanced aircraft carriers and hypersonic missiles, poses a significant threat. Brigadier Ben McLennan, commander of the Australian Defence Force's 3rd Brigade, highlighted the seriousness of the ongoing exercises, stating that each drill is treated as a final rehearsal before a potential conflict, underscoring the gravity of the situation. Simultaneously, the geopolitical landscape is shifting as China has announced a downgrade in its participation at the Shangri-La Dialogue, Asia's premier defense forum. This year China will send a lesser delegation, opting for representatives from the National Defense University instead of the Defense Minister Dong Jun. Analysts suggest this decision reflects China's broader strategic considerations, including ongoing tensions with the U.S. over tariffs and a perceived diminishing interest in Western-led security dialogues. As these military maneuvers unfold, U.S. naval operations in the South China Sea continue to be a point of contention, with reports emerging of Chinese bombers being sighted amid U.S. aircraft carrier patrols. Such developments indicate a volatile environment where military posturing is becoming increasingly common and the stakes are higher than ever. The future of U.S.-China relations remains uncertain, with escalating military exercises and diplomatic tensions shaping the landscape. With both nations closely monitoring each other's actions, the potential for conflict looms, prompting a re-evaluation of strategies among U.S. allies in the region. As the situation evolves, the effectiveness of these military expansions and diplomatic engagements will be tested, revealing whether they can successfully deter aggression and foster stability in a region increasingly defined by rivalry.